All right, so speaking of evolving concepts, things that are evolving and changing, we're going to switch a little bit to North Korea, Major. The White House is setting new preconditions ahead of the president's possible meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong Un. U.S. officials now want the North to stop all nuclear and ballistic missile tests, but allow American military exercises with South Korea to proceed and commit to denuclearization as a discussion topic.
So during a speech on Saturday, Major, as you know, the president seemed ready to accept all possible outcomes.
Hey, who knows? If it happens, if it doesn't happen, I may leave fast, or we may sit down and make the greatest deal for the world.
North Korea has said nothing about a meeting with President Trump since South Korea made the announcement on Thursday. So, Major, clearly, look, this is to give the president the benefit. This is a big deal. He was sent to Washington to upend things, and that's clearly what he's doing. But it does appear that now the intelligence community, the people within the military and others are saying, look, it's great that you've decided to do this, but we have to be aware that there are certain conditions that have to be met, certain things that have to happen, including, we've been talking about this last week, for example, the 3 Americans that are languishing in North Korean prisons, something that we can ask the North Koreans to do as a good faith measure. So where does this meeting stand, and does it seem, given that now the United States is saying that we need to have these preconditions met, that this is going to happen?
So the president accepting is a big deal, and it certainly shocked the South Koreans. It shocked most people at the senior level within his White House, the State Department, the Pentagon, the CIA. Everyone was shocked at how rapidly the president agreed to a meeting. And then they've had to decide, well, all right, now that he's agreed to a meeting, what's it going to be about, and what should be the standard for which we can accept a meeting? Because there never has been one between any American president. As a matter of fact, no significant foreign leader has met Kim Jong Un at all, under any circumstances, from any country. There have been a couple of representatives of the sort of mid to upper echelon of the Chinese government who've gone to Pyongyang, but nobody else. So no world leader has engaged directly in any kind of conversation about any topic, let alone giving up a nuclear weapons program that the North Koreans have invested in for the better part of 3 decades. So much has to be laid down foundationally for these talks to occur and to be in any way, shape, or form successful. So the idea that they can occur is important. Whether or not they will occur is still unresolved, and what they would be about if they were to occur also unresolved. And this is what happens when, as he uniquely does, the president sort of jumps over several layers of decision-making and deliberation to get to an end point. He's done this on many different issues. And then he leaves in that wake, or the wake of that decision, a tremendous amount of work that hadn't even been contemplated by his White House team that they then have to push through at a very rapid pace of succession. So just take those 3 bullet points for a second. The North Koreans can't stop joint military exercises between the United States and South Korea unless they want to do something militarily. So those exercises are going to proceed. They always have, and they always will, unless the North Koreans want to go to war over them. So that's really not a precondition that has any relevance. Denuclearization. Well, of course, that's the only topic that's really worth discussing. We don't have any trade with North Korea. We're not interested in creating trade or regime change. All we want them to do is give up their nuclear weapons program. So that's not a new ask either. And the idea that there'd be no missile tests or nuclear weapons tests underground, a natural thing to ask for if you are going to have a country give up its nuclear weapons program. So there doesn't seem to be anything here that is either different or outside of the realm of what the North Koreans would expect the Americans to ask for. So this still has a very improvisational feel about all of it. And until the North Koreans themselves commit to this meeting, because all we have now is their word transmitted to the White House by South Korean officials, until the North Koreans engage on this, and there's actually a conversation about what in the future to talk about, this is still largely an exercise in theory as opposed to an exercise in practice.
Well, I'm sure that, I think what makes this so concerning is that in this case, we're not just talking about negotiations between America and North Korea. There are other countries in that region that are watching this very closely. China, who is really pushing for a freeze move on diplomacy. perhaps you shouldn't say something out loud unless you got the details hammered out.
Exactly right.
That's all I'm saying.
That's usually the way it works.
Major Garrett, thank you so much.
You got it.
All right, switching gears now, close